But yeah, Ben, you're here to talk to us about video game soundtracks. Is that right?
That is correct. So last week when we checked out The Artful Escape, I made a comment. I was like, "Oh, the music in this is amazing, and soundtracks in video games don't get probably enough recognition that they deserve." So I was like, "Oh, I'll give them some recognition this week, and I'll talk about them."
Nice. Bit
Uh,
of continuity. I'm
so
enjoying that.
yeah, I like it. I'm a pro, Dan. I'm a pro. We've been doing this for a year now. We're starting to get the hang of it.
You'd
Well,
think.
other than being the videos on mute. Uh, I was just doing a bit of doing a digging around, and to be honest, thankfully, Game, the UK based retailer for video games, has done a bunch of analysis on data. So really, what I've done is I've just taken their data and I'm going to talk about it.
Thank you, game.
Yeah, thank you, Game. You keep going strong in that retail space. So interestingly, I pulled what the top 20 most listened to video game songs are on Spotify because there's a real building momentum to listen to video game songs outside of just playing the games. It's taken a life of its own, and listening to music from video games is just something that people do now rather than necessarily checking out the latest band releases. People are listening to video game soundtracks. They buy video game soundtracks. It's a really popular art form, and people really get into it. So the top three. Do you want to have a guess as to which game the top three most listened to songs on Spotify for video games is from?
Oh, now that's good. A good question. So I'm instinctively drawn to a lot of the retro titles because they're just famous for their soundtracks, but I'm probably in the minority. I know there's a lot of people who enjoy retro video games, but maybe not enough to make it in the top three Spotify playlists. But it's all I can think of at the moment. I'm going to go Streets of Rage. Is that up there?
No, it's not even in the top 20.
Oh,
It's actually League of Legends.
right.
So,
Yes. Yeah, they have entire concerts, don't they? Yes.
yes. So the most listened to song is Legends Never Die, which has had 219 million listens. Next is Rise from League of Legends. Third is Phoenix from League of Legends. So Rise has 130 million and Phoenix has 78. So
Wow.
starts to drop quite significantly. But I mean, 78 million listens is nothing to sneeze at. There are bands out there that would kill to have that many listens on one of their songs. So, and what Game have also done is they've kind of roughly worked out what revenue that would have generated from the listens that have been had on the songs. So alone, Legends Never Die, with the 219 million listens, has generated approximately £745,000 worth of revenue, which is an insane amount of money just from people listening to it on Spotify. Some other notables in the top 10, Rip and Tear from Doom, 34 million listens. Dragonborn from Skyrim, 19 million. And Still Alive is 20th with 18 million from Portal. There's a big market out there on Spotify. When I was looking into this, I immediately went to Spotify to see what soundtracks were out there and what people were listening to. And there was just to give you an idea of how quickly this picks up momentum. There was a Spotify playlist made just 20 days ago. It's like 5.5 hours long, songs from recent old school songs, and it already has 450,000 likes on the playlist, and it was only created less than 3 weeks ago. So people are actively looking for this and listening to it. As well, from the game data, which I found interesting, was rather than as well just the songs, there are teams behind creating these soundtracks, and they exist on Spotify and as artists, and kind of the top listened to artists. So probably no surprise, as League of Legends is their songs are the top three. Riot Games music team gets 5.6 million monthly listeners.
Wow.
So just to put that in perspective, that's an insanely high number. Toby Fox is the second most. He gets 1.2 million per month. So there's quite a steep drop after Riot Games from 5.6 to 1.2 million. But I mean, 1.2 million is still insanely high. And Toby Fox did the Undertale soundtrack. I pulled out Sega because that's more going down kind of the retro-y vibe, kind of the music for Sonic and kind of more arcadey style music. 874,000 listens. They're the ninth most listened to video game music team on Spotify. And Clint Mansell I pulled out as well because Mass Effect, people like Mass Effect, 695,000 listens. So I think what's interesting about video game soundtracks as well is kind of when we talk about video game music, it almost gets lumped together as a genre. And it's not really a genre. It's a way of classifying groups of songs that, oh, they've been in video games. But if you like look at the difference between the music in League of Legends and in Mass Effect and Doom, it ranges from, somber or acoustic to, heavy metal. I mean, you can see me and Adam rocking out to the Doom soundtrack on our YouTube channel when we checked out the Doom game. So it's interesting to categorize them together like that when really
it spans
subgenres
genre. Yeah, and what I think is also interesting is it's how it transcends channels as well. So yes, there's the music from video games, but now with the likes of Fortnite, we've got real life artists performing within video game environments. We've got guest composers contributing to video games, and even these kind of video games performances. I mean, I myself have been to an orchestral performance of the music from the Chinese Rooms titles, and it's spanning across all these different mediums. And like we've talked a lot about fashion in games, and I think it's just the same with music in games. There's just such a big kind of sub and adjacent industry to actual just the playing of video games.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the Chinese Room, I was going to come to them as well because Jessica Curry is very famous within the space and has done a lot of work with the Chinese Room on Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and So Let Us Melt, and won loads of awards for the music in those games. And the Chinese Room are very well known for kind of the narrative driven stories, but kind of the music in all of their games is just incredible, and it's very not music driven, but it plays such a large part in those games that people are looking for those songs and want to listen to those songs and are possibly drawn to some of the games because of the music that's being created. So it plays such a huge factor in getting people's attention and keeping people in games and going back. And it's an incredible effort that goes into, like you said, the whole orchestras come together to put these music together. Like that's no mean feat. And Journey is another game which is Journey the game, not Journey the band, is really well known for its soundtrack. And Austin Wintory, who did the soundtrack, spent 3 years working on the soundtrack for the game. Like that's a huge investment of time to do that, but it turned out incredible, and it got the recognition that it deserved. It was the first video game soundtrack that was nominated for a Grammy, and I believe looking down the list, it's still the only one that was in 2013. Like it's typically film, so it was nominated for the best score soundtrack for visual media, which obviously games is a visual media, which is how it got in. But typically it's films. It's always films that get nominated. So Journey kind of stands alone as being the first and only one that has been nominated. It's not the only time video games have been acknowledged at the Grammys. Previously in 2011, Christopher Tin's what's it called, Baba Yetu won an award at the Grammys, but it's the theme for Civilization 4, but it didn't go in as the theme for Civilization 4. It just happened. It was on his album as well, but it was the theme for Civilization 4, and he actually won the Guinness Book of World Records award for being the first video game song to win a Grammy. So, I was saying they don't get the recognition that they deserve. They do get some recognition, but even like you say, looking at this in the Grammys, there's been 2 that have been acknowledged since 2011 onwards, and I think there's so much amazing stuff going on in video game soundtrack that it's not. Maybe it could puch on and do more. And
some of those the numbers that you're saying for like the League of Legends tracks and things like that. There are certainly like award-winning artists that are just not getting anywhere near that kind of footprint. So yeah, I definitely think we've probably got a lot more to see.
Yeah, exactly.
Picking up some of the points in the comments Adam's mentioned, sounds like an extended experience, which is obviously what we talk a lot about, and this idea of still engaging with a video game IP, or a franchise, but in a context away from playing the game. Absolutely, yeah, that is something to be considered. It is one of the player experience touch points that should be. Yeah, it can be considered, could be a conceivable part of video game marketing strategy or continued engagement strategy. And also an equally important point that Adam's mentioned is that everybody at home would love to hear a rendition from you of the Still Alive song from Portal.
Maybe next week.
Okay,
maybe next week.
We'll add it to the agenda for next week.
Yeah, add it to the agenda. So yeah, what else I found interesting as well. Obviously, we have people like Jessica Curry who are famous in the video game space. We also have recognized bands and artists as well outside of video games who do produce music for video games. So some notable ones that I've pulled out, and this goes all the way back to the early 90s. So Michael Jackson. I bet you can't guess what game Michael Jackson did some music for in 1994.
I mean, I would imagine it was Moonwalker. Was it not?
It was Sonic the Hedgehog 3, apparently.
Wow.
Which I need to verify. Like, I read that, I was like, is that right? But that just blew my mind that Michael Jackson did music for Sonic. David Bowie did some music for the Nomad's Soul in 1999. Kind of makes sense. David Bowie's kind of in. If you told me David Bowie did video game music, I wouldn't be surprised. I wasn't surprised for that one. And a bit more recently, Florence and the Machine was in Final Fantasy in 2016. Bring Me the Horizon and were Death Stranding in 2019. In fact, there was a lot of bands that contributed to Death Stranding in 2019. And it's that also, like, there's kind of different types of video game music as well. You kind of have the retro arcadey music, you have songs which are like full songs that are in, and you kind of have the background music as well, like in Halo and that kind of thing. Like, it's still, that is part of the soundtrack, and that people listen to that as well. So there's really wide ranging from what is classed as video game music, and it's weird for me. I don't know whether it's the same for you, Dan. Like, when full songs have been in games, I can't not think of the game when I hear it, and the ones I always think of is like when I hear Dynamite from Miss Dynamite, FIFA 2003, or Ashes from Embrace, that's FIFA 2006. Like, I can't hear that song without immediately thinking of those games.
Back to the game, yeah.
Obviously, they're nothing really to do with the gameplay of the game, but it makes me think of that game because I associate with it and have the memory of that song playing while I was playing the game. So.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of kind of late 90s rock and indie music that were in the Tony Hawk games, and I always picture playing those games because those soundtracks were just so prolific within those games. Absolutely.
So that's kind of the end of where I wanted to go with that. I just wanted to, as I say, I didn't think they were getting the recognition they deserve, so I just wanted to spend a bit of time looking into it a bit deeper, talk about a couple of things for people if they want to see more music, video games. So, friend of the show, Paul McCaskey, he actually set up a podcast specifically around retro game music. Game music, I always get the Game Music Gaiden.
Yep.
So go check that out. If you want to see within the industry, people getting recognized, there's always an award at the BAFTAs for video game music. Spider-Man Miles Morales won the 2021 BAFTA for music in a video game. And also check out Game Audio Network Guild, or GANG as it's abbreviated down to. They always host annual awards and recognize music within video games. So yeah, shout out to everyone who works on video game music. It's an incredible feat, some amazing art coming out of it, and yeah. There's tons and tons of playlists on Spotify. So if you want retro music, you want just the specific soundtrack from a game, it's all on there. Just search for it, and you can listen to your heart's content and give them some revenue because that's the way Spotify works.
Absolutely, and yeah, let us know what you think. What's your favourite video game music? Do you discover anything cool? Let us know. You can follow us at EtchPlay on Twitter. And if you've enjoyed the show, then please do look for the follow button if you're watching live, or the subscribe button if you're watching later on YouTube.